Hi, this is Manjula Narayan, books editor, Hindustan Times, and today I have with me Jill Mill Breckenridge.
Thank you so much.
Who's edited Side Effects of Living, an anthology of voices on mental health, and she's co-edited it with Namrata Kathai. So I found this really interesting because it was voices on mental health by people who are battling it or who've been accused of it in a way.
Or
Right.
caregivers. We have
Yeah,
some
or
caregiver
caregivers. Yeah.
voices as
So
well.
tell me about the process of getting this book together and what made you do it. You know.
Sure. We're really excited about this book, so thank you so much for having me here, A. And the book really came because Namrata and I both have had brushes with mental health in our own way. Namrata, from the point of view of being a caregiver, she grew up from the age of 5 or 6 with a mother who had schizophrenia, with her being the eldest sibling, huge age gap between her sister and her brother and herself. So she almost has been the mother figure in that house. And she carried that shame and blame and wouldn't tell people. Her school friends wouldn't understand. They wouldn't know why she was always a little sad or a little too grown up. So she grew up with that. And I, because I had my own issues with sexual trauma through a difficult marriage and had faced the label of having bipolar disorder and had even faced being locked up in state and private mental health institutions in India, which are still just like asylums. There still were people walking around with shackles on their feet, and
Seriously?
this is the truth. And so the scary Victorian pictures you see, shackles, actual shackles, two like piles, heavy ones with a chain in between, so you can't run, so you walk really slowly with those kind of steps. And this is in a private hospital in Delhi. And these are supposed to be premier hospitals. These are where you put away your loved ones because you want them to recover. And this is what is going on in the name of care. So me from this, and then Namrata and I just met about 5 years ago, and we just started talking that the world needs to hear our stories. So the first was just, writing our stories, and then we expanded it. And with the book also, then we set up our own mental health charity, and it's now almost 3 years old.
What's it called?
It's called Bhor Foundation, BHOR. And we are very blessed and excited because it's doing well. It's getting, we're doing good projects. People are recognizing the work. And so we are definitely, our heart is here from lived experience, from the feeling that it's happened to me. Let's make the world a better place so that other people don't have to suffer.
Okay. Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
So then you what? How did you collect these? There's poetry, there's art, and there's essays.
Sure.
Talk about how you got them all together.
Yeah, so for me, because from about the last 10-15 years, I'm doing advocacy in this space of mental health. So a lot of my Facebook friends, for example, have had issues, or they themselves care about mental health. Either they are activists, or they are survivors, or they have issues, or I've helped many people through the years. So I just put out, calls on our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, reached out to a few people personally. And initially, because Namrata and I are both poets, we thought we will write. It just seemed more natural because poetry is easier. I think a lot of people who have mental health issues also do get into poetry. So initially, the book was 80% poetry and very little prose. But in this avatar that you see now, this is now 80% prose and very little poetry, because our publishers advised us that the world will...
Don't touch poetry.
Yes. No one buys it. No one reads it. So yeah, that's how it is. So we now have a lot of backlog of things which we'll see how to bring out.
So you think you're going to get another collection?
I think so.
Anthology?
I think so. There is a need, and definitely also an international one, because I have some really good submissions from the UK, from the US, and so I'll start looking. But I've also been told that anthologies themselves, there aren't so many anthologies, so many takers publishing-wise. People like one person writing essays, or so. I don't know. I'm still going to give it a shot because there are some really good stories that we have.
But it comes together because if it's on mental health, and it's actually I mean, I think it's really neglected in India. You know, I mean, a lot of us have issues, but nobody talks about it because of the shame and because we're just not conditioned that way. You know, we're
Yes,
not a very
yes.
open society, so all that.
Absolutely.
So, you know, how to actually, you know, even be writing about it, speaking about it is a big thing.
Absolutely. And you will be interested in the fact that we have two anonymous submissions in this book, and one has stayed anonymous till the end. But the other, because this book took 3 years in the making, you know, the more people talk about it. So there is a piece in this, and this girl now has put, she said, okay, I don't want my real name, but put my Instagram handle. So she has put that, and you know, that person's name is Dervishan. In this book, we have a piece, and initially it was some totally made up name, and it was called Sona Musafir. She had put that name. And then, you know, but I'm so excited to see that as people talk, as they write, they become more empowered, and a lot of the self-stigmatizing impacts go away. So then they are willing to, you know, put their name to their story. And I think that is what will make the world be more receptive and stop hiding this whole thing behind the shame. And in Indian societies, particularly Indian families, if you have a son or a child,
Everything is shame.
everything is shame. You brush it under the carpet, and oh no, we don't have it. Must be in other families.
Very
We
normal,
are
very
fine.
normal.
Yeah, norm. And what is normal
I don't
anyway?
know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's a big thing. So, would you like to read something from the book?
Sure. I'll just read one passage. This is from a story by Malini Bhattacharya. And Malini is a very young woman, maybe 26, 27. She lives in Kolkata. And this piece is called Father. And this is somewhere in the middle, and the parents are fighting, and it's about something that she does. My parents' voices grew louder. They snarled and clawed and spat. They might have drawn blood. The children of these benighted and canny soldiers lurked in their own rooms, one mute, immobile, listening, the other throwing objects, jewel cases, jewelry, books, pencils, clothing, a pair of glasses, a purse, across the room, not to injure, but to have something to do. She ripped the movie posters and crayon drawings off her wall, pulled the photographs taken with friends at an amusement park, by the shallow lake on campus, in that very room, off the mirror frame. She dug her fingernails into her cheeks. She examined her wrists, white skin smooth over the veins, more green than blue. She found a bowl of yellow custard on her desk that she had forgotten to eat and went at it. She then walked into the master bedroom where her father had finally summoned sleep. Her mother was in the bathroom washing herself with hot water and rummaged around the nightstand. A glass of water, a little notepad, the phone, a watch, and then she found what she was looking for. There were 20 alzolam tablets, and she took them all.
Ooh.
Yeah, powerful stuff that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you know, when you're reading these things and you're putting this anthology together, a lot of it is so raw. You know, as someone who's, I mean, you know, been through a lot of it. What was your reaction? I mean, I can imagine that, you know, even editing something like this would be triggering.
Yes, it's definitely heavy work. You have to, you know, as you're reading, it will take you back to your own life, your own dark spaces. So I think along with the editing, both Namrata and I were very careful to have lots of sunshine and walks and self-care, because there was a part where two weeks we were together, and she was teaching in Tehri at the time. And so, you know, we would do this for 2 or 3 hours, and then we like, okay, now we better go out or, you know, eat something, because it's heavy work. And but also, you know, you're reading some pieces and you're shaking your head and you're like, yes, this definitely has to be. Some things were too wannabe and too like...
Wannabe?
Yeah, I'll tell you more about this. There is this whole fashion about mental health these days. You know, it's almost like a glamour thing. Yeah, you know, that film star has it, that such superstar has it. So there is a lot of people, I believe, and I work in this space, There's a lot of people who are just writing about anxiety, about various labels. I think just to write about it, and I think there is a danger. This whole becoming a glamorous thing almost. I mean, of
I'm
course.
so hip.
Yes. Hey, I'm so hip. I have.
Oh my God,
this
that's
label.
terrible.
It is terrible. So there were some of these wannabe pieces that we would just keep.
So how do you
sifting.
tell? I mean, there must be the fakeness comes out.
Yeah, you can sort of tell. Some like these, the pieces we've chosen, we really think that, and also because I'm so passionate about the trauma-informed approach. Like we had lots of pieces who'll just, the traditional recovery narrative is, hey, I'm 25 years old, I have bipolar disorder, then I took this medicine, then I felt better. Now, recovery is not like that. And we had a lot of such.
Life is long. I
Yes,
mean,
life is long. So we thought that, we also wanted to show a slice of life kind of stories, and we wanted a slightly more critical approach. Maybe they linked it back to something which happened in childhood, or perhaps there was some other marginalizing factor like sexuality and mental health. So someone who's gay may have, some other nuances to his story. So we deliberately chose pieces like that. And yes, we have a few of the pieces in this book which have that kind of normal sort of recovery narrative that, I have this condition, I take the medication, life's not great, but I'm happy with it. But we have a lot of narratives in this where people have written about what happened to their brother. For example, the second story in this book is by Amit Katpalia, and his brother is schizophrenic. And he's written that after 30 years of medication, because his family was very much, oh, medicine is the way. And so they put the brother who was schizophrenic on medicine. And after 30 years, they've seen that the medicine has done nothing, that the son is a vegetable. And so he's written about that. So I feel that writing these are important and sharing them with the world, because a lot of people, parents, caregivers, husbands, wives, they don't know. They believe the doctors. And so writing and showing these narratives gives them another way to just question that, hey, maybe there's something beyond medication. Maybe, or the first story in this book is by Jayashli Kalathil, and she lives with what she calls non-consensual reality. So your reality may be different from her reality, and another label could be schizophrenia, but she doesn't choose that, or other such medical labels. She just says no. And so she lives with voices and deals with it in the way she chooses. And it could be medication at some points, and it could be just staying away from people when she's having a difficult time. I don't know. She's not written very much about it, but I believe everyone should have the right to choose. And so that's why this book presents all these different ways that people are living with their mental health and their physical health. In any case, it's all connected, the physical health, mental health, and so just different ways people are living with it and living full and happy lives. The stereotype is that, one time you get this label, pagal hai, life is over. Another girl whose narrative is in this, she was told by her psychiatrist in her early 20s, now you will be on this medication, you can never have a normal life, you will never get married, and you will never have children. And she was so determined to prove him wrong that she did all of these, and she's 1 or 2 years younger than me. She has 2 beautiful girls, and she's happily married. And she always recounts this, that, this is how the Indian medical system treats people who have a mental health condition, that now you are separate from this is society, and you live on the fringes, and you may never do what normal people do.
It's a sort of untouchability.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And more so, I think the people are so scared of the brain and the mind that they don't understand it. So it's like, can't go there, don't want to do that. So I mean, for me as well, when I lived on the streets, almost on the streets after my ex-husband had locked me up, my entire family and all the friends all shunned me, that Shilmil is crazy. Because if her family and her father, who's a pretty well-known person, if everyone is saying, they must know. And so then I lived alone with my 3 dogs, and I sort of fended for myself for 2 years, and I taught some yoga, and I did some editing, and somehow rebuilt my life. And now those same people who had shunned me, all my family, cousins, everyone is around me now. So I just laugh because I'm not a fool. I'm not mad, like they say. I know what they did just, 5 or 7 years ago. But I'm just like, okay, that's how the world is. So you just, you roll with the punches.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were talking about giving people the choice. And
Right.
if they choose to live in a certain way, let them live that way. But in a society that's like so, bent on conformity, on appearances, isn't that really difficult?
I think it is, and
And that's
especially,
why families do these sort of things
yeah,
to make you conform,
and especially in a paternalistic society like India, where family is supposed to be like the best thing in the world, and we know what's good for our children, that kind of thing, and where children never grow up, and in their 20s and 30s they are still children with their parents choosing what is to be done. For sure this is difficult for most people, because I know, for example, when I was locked up for the first time, there was a very famous model at the time. I can't remember her name, but she was a famous model, and then she had got some brush with mental health, and she had been living on the streets. But her parents or her mother at the time didn't want her living on the streets, so she was brought in from the streets. Her hair was all matted, and the way those dreadlocks, and Radhika Nagpal was her name, it comes to me now. And but she was choosing to live on the streets, but her parents wouldn't want that. And then she was put through this whole treatment, a lot of medication, and then she was put into a Nari Niketan. Now, these kind of stories, they may think that it's for her own good that she's in a Nari Niketan, but we all know that in a lot of these so-called homes, there's a lot of violence, there's a sexual
Oh my
violence.
God, it's like
There's
a nightmare.
yeah, totally. So I feel the person has to have a right to choose, and this is also in total alliance and solidarity with the UN's Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the UNCRPD, where they talk about everyone has the right to choose for themselves. Do they want medication? Do they want to live with their condition? Do they want to live in society? Do they want to live on an island? It's their choice, and we have to support that. It's very hard for Indians and Indian families because everyone likes to put their nose into everything. But I think that this book could be one way of showing people how there are many different ways that people are living and thriving. And hopefully this pro-choice approach will come up more, because a lot of people ask me, and then a lot of times there's no answer, and I just say, well, maybe you have to just cut yourself off for a while, live on your own terms, and then again rejoin with the family. I was speaking to some young girl just this weekend, and so it's very difficult, and they don't respect my opinion. And I said, well, sometimes you have to then do what I did, or what many people do, just move to a different city, live in if you're used to a really plush house, get out of that gilded cage with all those, if you live here, you have to be like this, you have to conform, this is the box and color within the lines. So I feel sometimes then you have to make those really tough choices, because it's very hard to make families change. But I hope that reading this book and hearing more people come out with their stories and film. This last year I was advising a Bollywood filmmaker. It's a film going to be released called Green. So I'm hoping through, the release of films and books and more people sharing their stories, that families will also see that yes, there are many ways to live with the label of Pagalpan. So,
Also, this thing you were speaking about, how the medical complex, and how it's how people who aren't who are labeled as mad, like you said, they're forced to have medication,
sure.
and when that might not be the best approach. So talk about that.
Sure. So, I
Or
think,
the only approach.
yes. See, in the urban situation, and especially for people of privilege and urban India, mostly the approach is the biomedical approach. And people don't know of other approaches. In villages, we still have the jhad phook and faith healing and dargahs. Also, in some parts of urban India, perhaps for different strata of society. But for a lot of us, or for a lot of people in our sort of milieu, they choose to go to the doctor, and the doctor will first of all prescribe medication, and they don't even mention therapy. And I think a lot of psychiatrists don't believe in therapy. They're like, huh, that also, but important to have these pills. And then it's almost like, the scary example they give now is they say, oh, just like you have diabetes, and they compare mental illness or a issue to just a diabetes, where you have medicine for life. In the same way, you now have this
It's not the
condition.
same way.
Yeah, but this is how they sell the idea. So it is the whole politics of big pharma, something I'm very vocal about. This is one angle. The other angle is they never talk about the side effects. So there is side effects of medication which need to be addressed. Things like nausea, over drowsiness, you'll put on weight, your sexual drive will change. These things are never mentioned. And I think the medication has its place, that you can have medication for a short term. If you are in a very psychotic state, if you are in a very manic state, if nothing else is working, if you can't sleep, have medication for a week, for a month, and then work on weaning it off. But that approach is not done with a lot of people, because maybe there's so many politics of big pharma, so I don't think your show has time for that. But I feel that there's kickbacks, there's expensive conferences, doctors are invited, encouraged to promote certain drugs. So I feel there needs to be more talk. And of course, we in Bhor, we talk about poetry as therapy, art as therapy, movement like yoga and kung fu as therapy, and nutrition, so important. These are the things the doctor should initially be saying, how's your diet, how's your sleep, and let's try these things. And the medicine should be a last resort. Unfortunately, most of the time, they're like, it's so quick, because it's in 5 minutes, you can quickly just come to a decision, write a quick prescription, and the person is out. The other problem is we don't have enough psychiatrists and psychotherapists in India, like for the population. So everyone is, the whole population problem. So there aren't enough per capita. So mental health is becoming a big thing, and it's important to talk about the psychosocial approach. Like there may be economic, like I talk about it, say for farmer suicides. These days there's this whole global mental health movement. You cannot give biomedical pills to someone who's committing suicide because of drought. You're committing suicide because your land is not giving you anaj. You can't just say, okay, start eating medicine, it will give you anaj. You need to have government policies, you need to have other subsidies, you need to perhaps give him a cow or give him some other way of earning money. So the problems in the rural situation are completely different, and I'm very frightened these days with this new global mental health agenda, which is mostly pharmaceutical driven, which is mostly going to make pills more and more available to the smallest village. And people don't know, and they will listen to the man in the white coat, and they will have the pills. So there's lots of problems in this space, but I think that, again, to come back to the book, there's some hope.
Yeah.
And so that's why we are writing, and that's why I work in this space, and that's why we do advocacy, because there are so many things to change. It's a public health thing, it's a governmental thing, it's a societal thing. It's not just because the way to come back to the prescribing of medicine, they label the person like something is wrong with you. They don't look at what's around the person. Has the person had trauma? Has they lost a job? Is there a global recession? Is it environmental? We need to start looking at the social approach, at the social lens. And that's where a lot of the books in this, in fact, even the title, Side Effects of Living, is very much talking to that approach, that it is a social problem. It is not an individual. The illness lens looks at the person. Like you have a broken arm, you'll go get an x-ray. You have a problem, you put the cast on. The same way with mental health. They look at you, you have a broken head, now you eat the pills, you'll be fine. But let's look around. So this is really where the book is coming from, and where a lot of the work that I and Amrita do, it comes from there.
Okay, great. Okay, so go out and get this book, Side Effects of Living, an Anthology of Voices on Mental Health. It's something, we all need to read and we can all take away a lot from it. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Manjula.
Thank you. Bye.